We came up with the concept of the SRS back in 2012, 2013. A few of us organisers just chatting over a beer and, hey, why don't we just link our events together and make a series? It's quite a complicated formula, actually, the SRS. I mean, on the face of it, it's a sports competition, but it's got a lot of different dynamics. You've got to be really careful that what we do in competitions doesn't destroy the bigger sport outside. And if you start getting hot ENCs produced, how does the general pilot know that this one's intended for racing and this one's intended for cross-country? The B category is out to be split by EN, so it'll be low B and high B. Two liners just collapse less. That's it. And that's generalizing, but 95% of two liners are good solid wings that don't collapse. However,
hello and welcome back to Paragliding Atlas. I'm your host Aninder Singh, and joining us today is a man who promises to make racing fun. I mean, it's exciting for sure and has remained so for past few decades or something like that. But when the fun factor from free flight is discussed, it often doesn't transcend as well as it does in other aspects of the sports. But in paragliding, racing has been the constant topic of discussion. And Brett seems to be somebody who has come in with a whole new setup of ideas, and they seem to be working super well. So I thought, why not reach out to Brett and ask him that how did he manage to bring all of this awesomeness in the place where seriousness was celebrated for far too long, I believe. Welcome to the show, Brett. Nice to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Just before we pressed recording, you were talking about introductions and how we're going to manage it. Did I come close to what your expectations were? Or, I mean, I'm still a work in progress, okay? I'm not going to lie.
Oh, that was fine. It was a good intro. I mean, I don't know. I can expand on more. I mean, you mentioned the fun there. I think the fun for me, I mean, I've been organising competitions since 2001, I think, was the first one I put together. But actually, I was taught by a guy, an old chap now, but in the UK, he used to run an accuracy competition on an airfield. And I went along just to get a tow rating. That's all I wanted. And I got sucked in to this competing on the airfield. And he had this competition in the winter. 100 people would come. And at the end of it all, every single person got a prize. It started with a big prize, a table full of prizes, and a big prize in the middle, and then lots of little things. And you just walked up. If you were first, you got the best thing on the table. And if you were last, you got what's left. But everybody got something. And for me, it was such a new concept that we always say everyone's a winner, but that really was a way of including everybody and keeping it fun. And it's always funny how everyone avoided the big prize. It would go down quite a lot of people before someone actually took it. So yeah, fun comps. That's where it started, and that's what I've tried to maintain in all of the events that we've organised over the years.
Yeah, geez. Oh, I want to go on so many tangents right away, you know, with the example that you've given me. But yeah, okay. The thing is, you have been in the game for more than 3 decades or so, I think. You've flown yourself all sorts of wings like hang gliders, paragliders, and then you've gone on to the role of an administrator behind the scenes, more or less, where you have worked in designing the comps for some of the biggest names in the sport, running them successfully, and then finally racing at the elite level yourself. You know, like you've flown triple Cs in some of the most toughest known competitions to the world of paragliding. But the bottom line is you have done something which gives back to the community in probably a much more rewarding manner than all of this. My question to you is this where you finally feel content, or is the hunger gonna finally keep on evolving in more time to come, and all of us can stay excited with the offerings that Brett Janaway has on the table?
Yeah, well, yeah, the hunger. That's a good question. I mean, as many of you know, I was the Gin Wide Open. We started in 2013, which was all about a fun, accessible competition. We've done others since then. I still run the Navita Open each year, which again, it's education and fun. But the fun is along there with any other word that we want to put into these. I tend to keep them as 5-year projects when I can, because for me, it can get stale after that. So yeah, projects. Define them, keep them sensible, and keep the idea moving. 5 years is a little restrictive, maybe, for sports racing series, which I'm now behind with a team. So yeah, maybe I'll do that one for 10 years. But for sure, someone else will take it on after me, as all the other projects are still ongoing with other people leading them.
Yeah.
But yeah, the hunger's still there. I don't know what the next idea is.
Oh, love
It's
it.
still
Love
there.
it. Sometimes they say ignorance is a bliss, and maybe that is the way to let creative things unfold, because if you plan creativity too much, then you're going against
Yeah.
the whole. But tell me something, Brett. As I started in the beginning, when I was kind of telling the audience the whole idea about this, competing is usually celebrating human excellence. And when humans want to perform better than others, they are exerting forces which are not that pleasant. So be it Olympics, be it F1, be it like any other place where we put humans against humans and gauge their performance, it's a very emotion-intensive thing, and not everybody is out there for a laugh. But SRS seems to challenge that pretty successfully, where people are not just coming in to stand on the podium. They're coming in for the community, they're coming in for the laughs, and yet at the same time, they do take whatever amount of bragging rights they want to with them at home, saying that, yeah, we raced and we reached so far. So how did this whole concept of people still being happy, even after not standing on the podium, come to you? And how was the early adoption like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the SRS, it's quite a complicated formula, actually, the SRS. I mean, on the face of it, it's a sports competition. But it's got a lot of different dynamics that we had to very, very carefully balance. So it is elitist. We are looking for the best sports pilot in the world. And the pilots we're attracting, we've got several top 100 in the world pilots competing. So
100
that's been
WPRS, you're
achieved
saying?
in the WPRS system, yeah. But at the same time, we want it accessible. It's open so that everybody can try and get in and have an opportunity. And that's pretty hard balancing two extremes into one series, especially a racing series. And so, yeah, I mean, we've designed it so there's many events in the year, so 6 for the coming season. We're trying to spread it around the world a little so that lots of nationalities get an opportunity. But at the same time, to win the series, you don't have to fly the whole series. You just have to fly in 2 events, and that can maximize your season score. So in that sense, we're trying to balance a lot of things. And then for the fun aspect, I think that will slowly decline over the years. It is a racing series, and it gets more serious each year. We'll obviously work hard to maintain it, but as the level goes up, it will get more focused on winning. And then, but for the pilots as well, at the moment and long term, I hope they will just keep realizing in the SRS that you're not really racing it to win it necessarily. Realistically, there's only 20, let's be generous, 20 pilots in there that have a chance at standing on the top. And really, it's about any competition. It's about challenging yourself. But it's very hard to fly against yourself. You're looking around, it's other people, not yourself. So for that, in my personal competing, I just pull out people that are just slightly better than me, and that's who I try and beat. And then when I beat them, if I beat them,
that's your own podium.
Pull out someone slightly better. So that's just setting realistic targets for yourself. And as long as you keep your targets realistic and achievable, then that leads to success, which is more success, and you'll enjoy the ride on the way. That's what I try and apply to myself and to the series, really, is just creating that opportunity for them.
That's so well said, man. I love it. Maybe we'll include that in the trailer. Brett, we often look to motorsport. I don't know how this thing became the norm, but a lot of times when difficult questions have been raised, some of the biggest names have said, look at F1, and if they can do it, so can we. And I agree. You should believe in doing better, and you have to look for inspiration from people who have been there, done that, and have, gone on to reap the rewards. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people in the audience also wonder about this. And guys, you can let us know in the comment section below if this is something that you resonate with. Le Mans has been quite a good example of celebrating human excellence when it comes to driving on four wheels. And the format of Le Mans for people, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly in French pronunciation or what, but the format of Le Mans is that it's a racing series where cars of all powers or different powers race on the same track over a period of 24 hours. So you can have something like F1 and something like motocross chasing the same glory, but in different classes. But the track is the same, the organization is the same, the whole blanket overall is one single thing. Can we follow something similar in paragliding and make it rewarding for everyone at every level, and yet not over pressurize the organizers to come up with 100 different solutions in a market which is anyways very hard to navigate in the cash flow that we have?
That leads to several interesting aspects, really. I mean, Formula One is what we often see quoted. I even quoted myself occasionally. But I think for me, when I reference something like that, the key takeaway is how the organization should be the one setting the rules. Mm-hmm. And then the racers have to adapt to those rules that are available. You need a very focused vision for the vision to succeed. At the same time, the SRS is another good example of we're not the best, we're not the world's. The customers won't come anyway. We have to appeal for them to come. So you've got to create something that is not just super focused, but something that they want. At World Championships, everyone wants to be the world champion. Doesn't matter what you present as the format, they will come because it's the only way to get a champion. At a fun event, they've got other options. You've got to deliver what the customer wants. So that helps gives us the balance there. But then to allow it to be accessible by literally everybody at all levels, that's where it gets complicated again. And so you can look at something like, let's take a fun event, the Navita Open. They're all fairly new to competitions, and so they're all a similar level. So if I set a 50K task, it's achievable by them all, and they'll learn something and we'll debrief later. But if you set a World Championships, or a PWC is probably an even better example. Set a PWC, a super final, you can set 100K, 150K, and they can all do it. They can all do it safely. They will all race together. But a national competition is arguably the most dangerous because you've got the national champion flying up against somebody in his first ever event. And how can you balance an equal opportunity for them both, that they both enjoy doing and neither get scared doing? And that's difficult. So, for the same task to be available to all levels is super difficult. You've got to target your audience.
I think what I want to bring in here is that past few months or so, like since the CIVL resign, and I know that we've been divulging into this far too often. Paragliding is much more than just racing at elite levels, but somehow the trickle-down effects will eventually have some after effects which the beginner levels will see. So that's why I want to talk about this. The bottom line is that everybody wants to encourage inclusivity. Like nobody wants anyone to feel left out. The organizers are a handful of people. They're a wonderful set of people who are saying that regardless of however little the reward is, we will still go out and make it fun for someone else and not for the sake of money. That, first of all, that thought itself is quite noble, and anybody who has that should be encouraged. So the point is that a lot of people do not have time or the resources to fly the amount of hours it takes to be current, to finish the tasks safely. Let me generalize it that way. I don't want to pinpoint, so please do not quote me on that to any of the audience members who are listening. But the point that I'm trying to make is that people want inclusivity, yet people want excitement. if we have something like Le Mans, where everybody is included to be at the start line, they get to rub shoulders with top-of-the-line pilots in the world, they get the social aspect of it, and when the race begins, the ones at the highest level, the ones at the Formula One level, can still go out and chase excellence as they do because they have the skills and everything for it. But whereas everyone else who comes in for the beers and the friends can go bomb out together and just start doing it a whole lot earlier in the day than wait for the leaders to come back. So inclusivity is one solution that has been given by combining multiple formats, reducing the pressure on the organizers, and yet making it not a taboo to be out of place when it comes to chasing excellence. That is why. Is that a viable solution, or is it like, nah, man, because of the survivability becomes a question, then it's like, yeah, we can't have similar things.
Yeah, well, I think that just comes back where I was a moment ago, really, though, is if your audience in front of you isn't within a similar level, it gets very difficult to maintain that safety throughout. So yeah, inclusivity is great as best as we can, and of course that can apply to many things. I'm talking about pilots' relevant experience and skills at that time in that particular contents. Other things like glider differences and all that, that's another big topic, huge topic, which again the SRS addresses by saying that's the class you're flying in this event. But yeah, I don't know, it's complicated. And the sport is even more complicated. It's an incredibly dangerous sport we do, especially when you bring in racing. People are chasing like crazy with a red mist to win a €20 trophy. And trust me, no one will remember your name next week. I bet most people can't even name the current world champion, let alone the person who won the national event. So the red mist cuts in. We've got to be careful. And so we've got a very dangerous event, but we have a sport where we've got no money. So we're not spending 5 million, 10 million per race that they are in Formula One. And we're being run by volunteers, by virtually everybody. That's a super hard mix. And that really comes down to, as a pilot, you've got to remember this and take responsibility a lot of the time yourself. I mean, we keep moving forwards as a sport. I think safety will keep moving forwards. The SRS, that was one of the key aspects from the start, is carefully managing the safety, as I do at all my events. But it's a big dynamic, and we're trying to balance it with a poor man's sport. Poor man's sport, that's a wrong term.
No. I'm going to reiterate that, and fine, nobody will coach you on it, don't worry. But the point is, Bill Hughes made a very important statement on the last episode where he said that eventually the solution is to bring in more money. That means you have more people to hire which are more professional, and you have like other things which can be included to make the whole package more attractive. But let's say, how does commercialization usually work? The commercialization is spearheaded by media. So we are in a sport which is dominated by the age group of 40 plus. Okay, teenagers do creep in, I'm not going to lie. Like, there are some people like Baptiste and a lot of other Frenchies who take up the youngster flag and fly it super high, super well. But it's only a handful of, percentage when we look at the overall picture. Even the consumers of this podcast, when I look at my analytics, it's like we have 1% who are under 18 and maybe like 3 or 4 who are up to 25. And then 40 to 60 comes from between the age group of 40 to 60. So usually when you reach that stage in life at the age of 40 to 60, you are fairly financially well off, you're either paying mortgages or you have responsibilities, and then you have some hobbies which take your time, energy, and effort up to a point. But none of these guys who are making the chunk of the flyers are willing to go out and make pretty Instagram stories or whatever is the norm of media interaction. The youngsters who are finding it easy to jump onto these trends are finding other ways to stay excited in their life than have paragliding. So are we seeing a bit of a disconnect where generational age gap is kind of causing things to, eventually die out? Because a 40-year-old pilot, when he starts, still has a bit of motivation. or like when a person is 40. But when they reach 50, 60, they're like, you know what, dude, I've done it enough. And now I have better things to do in life. So even though there is a maturity of 2 decades in the sport, a lot of interesting storytelling, it never reaches the intended audience because the person who's telling them is running out of steam and has got better things to do. So youth, money, attractability, and media, is all of this the reason why we are losing out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the team manager for the juniors in the UK, the junior team. We now have a world championships for them, and for sure, half of that team, more than half of that team, has come from a background of the sport. The parents or close relatives are from the sport themselves, so that they've naturally gravitated to the sport. But I think that for outside new people, it's too frustrating a sport for the young. It's you got to wait for the weather to be right. You need thousands to buy your first equipment, and if you want to go into competitions, you need thousands every year to replace that kit, to travel to the events. 1 week in Colombia for European, you've blown €1,000 on the flight alone, and now you're at the mercy of 7 tests to produce a result on. So yeah, for the young, I think that's difficult. I think Russ Ogden, speaking to him recently, he sums it up very well that pilots don't peak until they're about 35. So we've got some really good juniors in the world at the moment, but they will keep getting better. And 35, he believes, is about the peak. And after that, you start to decline, not necessarily that fast. I think there's a lot of people in their 50s still flying extremely well. But the point is, when you hit your 40s, you become more patient and accepting of those things around you, and you'll wait for the weather and you'll have the money to travel somewhere better.
Jeez, man, I'm 35.
Don't know how that's
it got me thinking that shit, are my best flying days behind me if this comes from Russell?
for the extreme end. I mean, Ono Onorin has to be one of the best pilots that we've seen in the sport ever.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly his background, but he in France has an opportunity to take your university degrees in the sport, and so he was literally schooled in it from a very young age.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he's a classic example, peaking at 35, we believe.
Yeah, I had him on the show when I started this. He was he was super kind to approach. I kid you not. He was one of the first guests.
You're a lovely guy.
Yeah, and he mentioned his like dune soaring, and I think he comes from Normandy or something. So he was putting in a lot of effort, supported with family in younger days. So definitely got a head start.
As an aside, even on that, I think people like, you go to any world champion, you'll always find they're approachable, nice guys. Yeah. It's a trait you have to get to the top. So yeah, it's
wow.
All of them, good guys.
Amazing. Brett, I want to come to the ENC class. ENC has been having a pivotal role in glider design, I would say, since the beginning of it. Because ENC was a stepping stone. It was one of the fanciest class to race or like to push your limits in for a while. And then it became a stepping stone, a transition class of some sorts before going to two-liners, It was like ENA is the school wing, ENB is where you go out and learn things yourself, and then ENC is where you learn how to push limits and then also learn where to hold back, because END or two-liners or open class or whatever it is will be more exciting but will be less forgiving as well. So ENC, three-liner ENCs were giving people that comfort, yet keeping it on the border where you can jump when you feel like. How did the two-liner ideology come into ENC? Like, what just happened that allowed a file to be signed which said that you can collapse the lines and EN will be okay with it? What's the history of EN going two lines?
I mean, well, if you go back the history of the sport, I think the ENC or its form of variations before the EN system, I think the ENC was really a proper paraglider. That's what most people should aspire to. And anything less than that, the Bs, the As, they're a compromise towards more safety. They're the wings you learn on, learn your skills. And the Ds, they were a compromise to performance. And then later the CCC is the extreme end of performance. So a C is the wing for the majority of sport, really, outside competition in particular. The two-liner, that changed the game a lot. So that was, 3 years ago they appeared. And it's a big change to the class, but I don't think it's necessarily a negative change. Two-liners just collapse less. That's it. And that's generalizing. There's always a bad wing somewhere in the mix, but 95% of two-liners are good, solid wings that don't collapse. However, a three-liner is probably going to be easier to sort out from most problems, not all. Sometimes the two-liner is better. So, yeah, it's a change in the class, but I do think it's a healthy change in C, and pilots should just maintain the system of approaching it. So still go through the A's, the B's. The B category is about to be split by EN, so there'll be low B and high B. I think that's probably next year that comes into effect. So you should treat the high B as the low C, if you like, and then look to progress into the C's then. And just how many lines, it doesn't change too much, actually. That you gain the benefit of being able to use the risers to do steering. But lots of the Bs have that type of system anyway, so you can still learn it in the B class. And then, yeah, I don't think it's such a huge change.
Are you comfortable talking, like, what did it take for EN to, start thinking in this process and finally accept? Because I want to kind of forecast two-liner ENAs. Norms change, and our usual gauging of any instance is based on comparison. So right now we are being critical, or let's say we are being curious about two lines because we can compare it to three lines. But if, let's say, a decade down the lane, every single pilot who has originated or who has seen the sport only sees it from a two-liner perspective since the beginning, then they won't have these kind of questions coming to their mind when it comes to choosing a wing. So that's why I'm wondering, like, what was the thought process that went into accepting two lines in a lower class, which was a taboo for like 20 years or like since the open class? I don't know.
I don't really know, actually. I'm not privy to that sort of detail, and I would imagine it's a mixture of pressure from the designers and the manufacturers and the EN working with it. But yeah, honestly, I can't really answer. I just know as an end user, I'm quite happy with what's been produced.
Yeah.
And it was a deciding factor for the SRS existing at all. I mean, we came up with the concept of the SRS back in 2012, 2013, when a few of us organizers just chatting over a beer and, hey, why don't we just link our events together and make a series? But the conclusion at the end was it might put too much pressure on the sport having a series. But once the two-liner was released, that was it. We were immediately in there because a two-liner design has natural limitations as well on what a manufacturer could do to a wing. And so it was a safe time, we felt, to launch the series.
I want to just backtrack to 2011, Brett. And I think you must have been chasing Glory at that time, pushing full bar and stuff like that on I don't know, open class. That was the norm before that. Harnessing the power of open and strengthening the rules, bringing it into Triple C was definitely being questioned very hard back then as well. But in the longer run, Triple C has been widely accepted, widely celebrated, and we have seen new world champions being worthily crowned of the glory as the Triple C, best wing handlers of Triple C class. The current shift that we are seeing with two-liners ENCs and the eagerness of audiences to accept that in their racing circuits, are we looking at a similar Triple C thing where it is being skeptical that will people accept it? It might not make them very responsible at making choices. But when you look at a 5-year plan, as you said, or a decade down the lane, this is the underdog which will shine ahead and make sport a safer and a more fun place to be. Is there something similar?
History is always important when you're looking to go forwards. And I wasn't racing top level back in 2012 when the sport changed, but I was very much involved in the background. And the history back then, it was open class. A manufacturer could produce anything he likes to race at the World Championships. And yeah, unfortunately, there was two pilots died in the World Championships on the same task, very sadly. And it was a catalyst for open class being banned. And whether that was right or wrong, it's still debated. But the sport did enter what as a lot of people consider quite a dark period for about 3 years, I think it was then, where E&D became the racing wing. And we've got to remember competitions are still quite a small part of the sport. There's not many in this grand scheme of how many pilots are in the world. There's not many competing in competitions. And so, although we're the visible part, E&D got taken over. And so your natural cross-country pilots were suddenly given wings much hotter than the last generation of D. So you've got to be really careful that what we do in competitions doesn't destroy the bigger sport outside, which was the fears we had for starting the series in the sports. Now, as it is, the CIVL are likely moving towards the Sports World Championships. Personally, I'm not sure that's the best thing because it will put pressure on the EN system. And if you start getting hot ENCs produced, how does the general pilot know that this one's intended for racing and this one's intended for what I want to do, go cross country? So that's where we have to be very careful in designing this. At the same time, though, it will happen. I think that's a natural direction for competitions to take. Gliding, sailplanes, they've all taken this direction many years ago. So working on the inside with it, knowing that even though I'm not necessarily completely in favor of the idea, to shape the idea with the experience. And so for that, that's where CIVL, the working group, we want to work towards this CSC definition. So CCC is your modern equivalent of open class. It's just very few restrictions on it, really, compared to open class. And CSC is your sports competition wing.
Civil sports class.
The civil sports class, yeah. So that's the big discussions at the moment. And certainly in the short or medium term, it's not intended to replace the main worlds, the CCC worlds. It's intended to exist alongside it and be a separate opportunity to compete in the worlds, just as High Can Fly is a worlds or juniors is a worlds. It's another worlds. But the big debate now is how do we create a safe CSC wing? And that's still ongoing. The plenary, the annual meeting where these things are put into rules, that's not till next March. So we've got 4 months or something to still debate this and come up with a final solution. We had the poll recently with CIVL that 2,600 pilots or something responded to.
That was a very interesting survey, I would say,
It's absolutely amazing, the response rate. So we never expected that.
When did it get sent out?
It gave us a suggestion.
I never got a link to that. I was like very surprised. I was like, I'm always on the top of things, but I never found out that there was a survey being done.
If you're in the WQS system, you should have been sent a link.
No,
it might be in spam. If you're not in the WQS system, it was targeted to competition pilots.
I'm not good enough. Thank you for telling me.
So I mean, that was a great response and gave us some good direction, some feedback. And on that, we were proposing use the EN system because that's what everyone owns, but put some restrictions on it. So a 6.7 aspect was suggested and a speed limiter. The 6.7 aspect, it's intended to stop the manufacturer going a bit crazy and recertifying his high aspect wings into this. The speed limiter, that's actually nothing to do with the manufacturer. That's to stop the pilot endangering himself. Without one, it's quite easy to make the wing go faster than it's supposed to go. So that's a different limitation. The feedback was interesting. Generally, there's acceptance. There was a lot of people wanted it less restrictive. and an equal amount wanted it more restrictive. But anyway, the working group continues. There was a meeting yesterday where we had input of about 10 different manufacturers or 10 designers for how they feel it should go. And there's other designers expressing interest. So we'll see how that develops over the coming weeks and months, what the final proposal is. But the bottom line is, for me, whatever we finalize must protect the current EN system. But at the same time, it must try and be inclusive so that we don't. A super specialized CSC, for me, would exclude manufacturers because it's more cost certifying them, and might exclude new pilots entering the competition scene because suddenly they need a special wing. So it's like everything, it's a complicated topic. You're trying to balance a lot of things. But the underlying is safety. That's what it's about. So launch this class properly.
I think I want to highlight a fact, because safety is, of course, the bottom line of any activity that we do as humans. And especially when it comes to extreme adventure sports, the relevance of safety gets even more amplified. I was just thinking, when it comes to aerial sports or the things we can do in the air, there's base, there's skydiving, there's wingsuiting, there's like different disciplines, speed riding and, whatever, acro and stuff. The only place where we are able to race humans against humans in such a large format is paragliding. Nothing else, no other form of entertainment in the air comes even close to it. So obviously, since there are more lives at stake, more resources have to be put in, and more stringent and norms which make sense to masses have to be put in. But EN was a system developed quite a long time ago. And we have seen that kind of system slowly lose its relevance in acrobatics, in parakites, or in speed wings, where no matter how long manufacturers tried to stick to it or label their wings so that they could educate a certain audience, they eventually found it easier to give up and have just a loads rating and letting the buck stop with the flyer, with the user of deciding. So now when the user is going out to make a purchase, they have this sense of responsibility because nothing is being spoken to them about the behaviors and characteristics. And then they gauge their own decision-making accordingly. Are we looking at EN norms losing their relevance because we are trying to correct them way too much? And free flight is anyways about the freedom. And is this a sign that EN norms, this is just another way of thinking that I'm looking at, just another perspective, that maybe let people decide themselves and just give it a load rating, which is just a safety rating that, okay, the material won't disintegrate after certain things.
Yeah, that's another good question. So, I mean, EN, first, European norm, you've got to remember it's got an awful lot of process to go through to come out. So yes, it's always going to be a slow process, 1 2 year cycles at best, and maybe a year or two's work towards each one. We've also got to remember we're a broad sport. We've got everything from a man trying to walk up a mountain with a 500-gram harness to a competition pilot trying to compete with the heavier my kit is, the better, because the bigger my wing is, the better it'll perform. So I'm looking for 30, 35 kilos kit. EN's trying to cater for that entire market with a single definition. And for the majority of the sport, 80% of the pilots out there, it's spot on. It's them. But the 10% that fall to lightweights and 10% for heavyweight, for that example, yeah, maybe it's not quite adapted to them. But and EN is, in our sport, EN is about how well it will recover from things, not how easy it'll get into trouble. So that's also a difficult one. And one can be tested to a good degree. One's quite subjective. So it's a tough time for EN to balance it. But I think for A and B, it's absolutely perfect. And new pilots, they've got the perfect system to enter. As they get more experienced, they will, as they understand the risk and all the different aspects, they can then choose if they want to separate from them, certified or uncertified harness and so on.
I mean, I put this question to Luke, and he said that the easiest way for people to make a responsible decision is to just read what the designer says in the manual, right? Because test reports can be subjective depending upon, various things that you just mentioned and also the other things that come along with it. But designer will not lie because he wants to gain trust. So if the designer says something and you can relate to it, then, but again, this is another one of those never-ending points. But the reason why I asked you this is that, okay, it can be that we are focusing on how to make responsible tasks, how to make responsible competitions. But when we flip the coin, it can be how to make responsible decisions as well as a pilot. And that brings me to the next question is that you have seen a fair bit of audience over the past competing, racing, being a part of behind the scenes, and now with sports class. And you have seen people who are investing their time, energy, and money into it. They're not just there for the sake of being there. They really want to be there. That's why they're investing so many resources. According to you, out of all of these things that you have seen, when do you think a pilot is ready to bring in a CSC class in their life? And I'm labeling it CSC even though it hasn't been come out yet, is because, let's say, when is a pilot able to race two-liners in a sports class competition so that they know that by these many hours I am doing it safely and I'm not just doing it because 5 of my friends are doing it?
I mean, in a sense, that's exactly the same as the questions, when should I move up a rating or when should I do an SIV? And every person's different. We've got to first recognize that. And so, when to move up a wing, my answer is when you're bored of flying your current wing on full bar all the time. If you're not willing to push the bar, you're too scared to push it, you're not ready for that next level. And SIV, when you're happy to throw your wing around a little, that's, you've got confidence and trust in your wing. That's the time to go to SIV, but you need that basic trust before you try that. And for racing, it's the same, and actually it's got some variations, but it's, when you're confident flying your wing in many situations with other people, that's quite a key one, then you're ready to look to start racing. But the racing should also be stepping stones. So find the fun comps, the Sharber Open, the Naviter Open, the Nivea, as it is now, Open. Find those ones where you can have a relaxed task. It's not too stressful on what is set, and just learn the dynamics of what a competition is about. And they will give you debriefings. They will give you, lots of information through the day. Learn the dynamics because you're back at school. And then from there, then you can start progressing into other competitions. But on the flip side, it's not just the pilot. The organizers have to be responsible as well. So you shouldn't just be accepting every pilot that registers and just trying to fill your comp as fast as possible. You've got to have a clear mission on what your target audience is. And you've got to be a bit hard and cruel and say, well, sorry, you're not ready for it. Or you are above this and you're going to corrupt what we're trying to do to the lower classes. It's both sides, the pressure. And then just setting rules. And, the SRS in particular, we're very clear on how you get in. And it's all about your past experience. You've got to show what you've done in previous comps to achieve the correct score to get in. And we have a small wildcard system for the exceptions. Yeah. There's always exceptions.
The reason why I asked you that is I wanted to touch upon herd mentality a bit. Because we all love getting validated, that's a human kind of trait. And if we see an option where we can have fun while getting validated, everybody would love to, be a part of it. And I was in a World Cup in Macedonia earlier this year in PwC. I was not racing, but I was just there to absorb the vibe. And I saw a pilot flying an X1. He had just bought it like 20 hours in. And he was asking people to trim the wing for him, which is like, fine, yeah, you definitely should ask for expertise and help. But if you are racing with the elitist of the elite, who will not flinch going full bar no matter how bad the turbulence is, because they've put in the work, okay? They have built up the hours and done it, reached there. and yet you are asking for help to make sure your glider is tuned enough a few hours before the next task. I think there is a massive shift or like a massive gap between where the ideal pilot level is and where this pilot's level was. And I somehow feel that validation is probably the reason that makes pilots like these the decision to apply for the entry fee and be a part of it. So what you mentioned is that yes, organizers should know, but should we as pilots try to hold back the validation part when it comes to racing, because the cost that comes with it, which is very hush hush, but it's still scary, man. Like, why would you want to risk something like that, even when you don't know how to trim, and yet you want to be with the lead gaggle or try to be with the lead gaggle?
Yeah, I mean, it always comes back to saying earlier, the pilots also have to take responsibility. It's they've got to know their limits and know what their target is that they can achieve. And okay, going to a PWC, fantastic. I remember a lovely conversation in Colombia several years ago. It was my first PWC, and I'm trudging back through the field having bombed, and right next to me was one of the top pilots who just he's in gold and winning all the time. And he was so disheartened and annoyed that, I wasted my entire week, all this money to travel here, and this is what I'm doing and that. And I'm dancing along as happy as Larry next to him and saying, this is amazing. I'm learning so much. And it's just, you've got to know what you're going for and make sure it's achievable. But you've also got to be able to change your attitude and just try and look for how you can still gain. Okay, you've blown your week. So practice something, try something new in the next task, and try and take something from the week. So herd mentality, I mean, that's again another scary one for me. As a task setter, it's so scary. You set a task and you'll get challenged on some aspects, and you'll, no, the pilots won't do that. They'll all go this way. It's obvious which way to go. And then a task starts and you're, oh my God, what are they doing? You can't go that way. And it's clearly stupid, but they will all just follow. It's, task setting is a scary game, and herd mentality is the worst in sport.
Yeah.
The red mist drops, you chase it, you follow that arrow no matter what, and you chase the person in front of you no matter what.
Yeah.
So you got to step back and look at a bigger picture always. And yeah, competitions even in safety is another dynamic I love to consider. I did 15 years of guiding, quite intensive,
wow.
a lot of fly guiding through the year. And so you see a completely different spectrum of pilots, a lot of nervous pilots that don't want to fly off in foreign countries on their own. And as you go through it all, it's I don't know, I don't know that it's the lessons they've got to learn, and the self-awareness they need to achieve to gain confidence to go to the next step. It's a tough step. You've got to consider that. And I know I've lost the track. I was going to go down there with that now, but yeah, herd mentality. It's a tough.
Fair enough. And I love it how enriching this conversation is turning out to be, because the tangents that we all want to go to is like, dude, this can go for hours and hours. I love.
I've been 30 years intense on everything on this sport, so
60 minutes, Brett. That's all you have. 60 minutes to tell everything that you know of. But
set me off on another tangent.
All right, fair enough. Game on.
The trimming. Let's do the trimming one, because that's where you start. It's trimming.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a pilot. Trimming's a big thing in two-liners now, and it's funny that two-liners go out to trim faster than three-liners ever did.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, 3, 4, 5 centimeter change on our lines was not unusual, and you just grab them and tie your wing off to a tree and stretch them back out, and off you go again. Now, 5 millimeters on your CCC wings, 5 millimeters is becoming an issue, and you're measuring a lot. Some pilots I know, they're measuring every single competition to a trim that suits the venue they've gone to.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, that's just nutty. This comp, it's about climbing. I want it a bit slower. And this comp's about racing. I want it a bit faster. And it's talking 5 millimeter changes. which is nutty on a wing that's that sensitive to change anyway. But I think Russ Ogden still sums it up best for me. Are you enjoying your wing? Is it flying okay? Well, don't mess with it then. Just leave it. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it if you're not having a problem. And that's where 80% of us are, for sure. So I'm funny, I sell a glider trim, or Cross Country Magazine SRS sell a glider trim we made. But as soon as people start asking me how to use it, is your wing okay? Don't play. Learn about trimming outside racing, and then apply it to racing. So yeah, it's another funny game.
I think we fail as a community in our learning structures to make more independent when it comes to maintaining their aircraft as well. Because any good pilot, I believe, should be able to repair, maintain, and fly their wing well, So we do teach people how to leap off and how to circle and how to push bar, but we never teach people how to repack their reserves or how to trim their own wings or repair and all of that. Like there's a notion that let the professionals do it and pay for it. And that works well in the beginning, I'm not going to lie. It's a safety net. Like, you don't want to mess up trash back your reserve when you're 20 hours into the sport. But I think after 100 or 20, like, I think there should be IPPI level, like let's say IPPI Parapro 5 will only be issued to people who can repack their own shit. It will filter out a lot of non-serious guys. And the whole idea is to make sure that people are putting themselves in situations which they're worth of handling, right? Like that is the bottom line of all this discussion that is going on. So if somebody has reached a point where they are comfortable investing the time and having the patience to learn their repack or trim their glider and all of that, by that time, they're definitely comfortable investing time, energy, and whatever resources it takes to handle their wing in the air as well. And then you won't have these people running a few hours before the task asking people to help them trim their gliders, because they know the process for the past few years and they're comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I mean, I'm probably quite lucky coming from the UK. The UK was very proactive on this stuff quite early on. So there's huge repacking sessions and zip slides and all sorts of things. Not related to your IPI status maybe, but there's lots of opportunity. But it's a big world, and there's a lot of countries that don't have that resource. But no, it's a fair point. Maybe AP5 should be your master of the sport, and you have this. And the other thing, probably the UK again is particularly good at for me, is we have a coach rating. So we don't just have instructors; we actually have coaches who have skills in particular areas, and that's the area we're allowed to teach other people about. But we don't necessarily know the whole sport. We just know that expertise, so reserve repacking, for example. But yeah, pilots should be. I tell my son a lot. My son now, he's 17. He's really getting into the competition scene. He's third generation, so he's been around it
third generation.
Forever.
Have you guys written a book yet?
I think for him, he's going out, and I see other people going, "Oh, that's scary! What he's doing? What's he doing?" And I don't know. I used to do that when I started, and it's be playful. I keep telling him, go up there and be playful with your wing. Push it beyond where you're comfortable with, but obviously in the right place, at the right height, the right location. Push it a little bit more, and just throw it around a bit. Don't do stupid stuff. Don't go too far. But it's being playful where you learn skills.
Yeah.
You're in the learning zone now, and those skills become the subconscious takes them on. The subconscious is most of what we do in life. But I think that you can take that straight back to things like repacking a reserve or stuff. If you're just going to sit there and on Sunday morning go out for a quick float up and down the hill on your wing, don't expect to suddenly jump into a PwC and start racing. You've got to explore all the things that take you there, all the skills. There's a lot of them.
No, true, 100%. But yeah, Brett, before we run out of time, because usually, this is the closing end of the section, I want to talk about SRS, man. SRS has come out like nothing seen before, and you guys are exploding in every sense, with people jumping on, more venues coming in, and everybody talking about it in the most fun way possible. And I know I can ask the one question which will make you answer almost every possibility, that is like, what are you doing right? But I don't know, like, please tell us a little bit about SRS and how are you guys managing to make it fun?
Right. Well, SRS, you say it's new, but for me, it's not new. It's just progression from all the early events we made. So right back 20 years, it's just putting all those lessons together. But yeah, the SRS, it's okay. I started it, but it's a team. Like everything, there's a good team behind it. You know, we got Ruth and Ulrich Jessup, who were backbone of the PwC many years, bringing all their experience, not just their skills, because they got some super skills they brought in, but the experience. That's what I needed for that. And then we got others, you know, Lisa who does our scoring at every single event. The point of the SRS for us is taking all the experience we have, producing something that people want to participate in. So you know, a lot of my adventures are commercial, and if I don't offer what they want, they're not going to come back. So bringing that experience in. Same time, the SRS is not commercial. It's a non-profit. None of us can touch 1 cent of the profits, and we can't sell the company with 0 shares. So that was amazingly important to us at the start. We wanted that to be very clear that we're not doing this for the money. And then, yeah, at the same time, we still run it as a business model. So we can't make profits, but we keep creating what is needed by the sport to attract the pilots in, if that makes sense. And yeah, our guiding principles are trying to work on safety and fun. And of course, we don't always get everything perfect.
Yeah.
You never can, but we try and do it better than the others, and we try and learn quickly from our lessons. So we've had 1 or 2 scary tests, but we learn that lesson and we very quickly react. We're quite dynamic as well on how we can react and change our systems and change our rules. So that's working. At the same time, we want it to be for the pilots. So to be in it, you have to be a member. Everyone who participates becomes members, and that allows them to feed back to us to help shape the future of it. So we have an annual meeting, we take feedback, direction from them. It's still early days. I mean, we're 3 years in now, but it's still early days, not enough people to organize it. So for sure, some things we would like to do better, like formal votes and things to happen. Same time, be careful what people want. It's sometimes people have asked for things that's not necessarily realistic, which again, it's us just providing the direction on things. Yeah, so it's a big thing, the SRS. It's bigger than we expected, huge. We didn't expect it to change the sport. I was confident it would succeed because my projects historically have done well and I've got a good basis. But day one, we went out, and day one is a long time before it was heard about. We involved Cross Country magazine because we wanted to get that side, the presentation correct, and they know how to present. Then we took on some good partners. We focused on people that have been in the racing world, so Ozone, Gin, and BGD in particular. Skywalk joined us. Advance are joining us now. So, and Nivea have been in very close contact with us, even though they're not headlining up with us. And so with all that guidance and that history, that experience amongst all of those partners, I think it's just created something amazing. I really didn't expect it to get this big. So we've got to be careful we manage that carefully as well as we go forwards.
Are you guys, how many races do you have in your calendar already?
The intention always was for 5 a year and to try and do some outside Europe to give more opportunity. But 5 races a year doesn't mean you have to come to all 5 to win the entire series. You can do that by attending just 2. So the right pilot, Paul Tackett has been amazing this year. He did them all, but he only had to do 2. And there's a good chance he'd have won it anyway. So that's the first thing, is make it accessible, not too committing to be a part of it. First year we had 4, this year 4, but the second year, last year, that was 5. Next year we're doing 6, but that's not really what we intend long term. That's really because there's so much pressure. There's so many organizers around the world that want to run one. So we've had to open it up just as a one-off, just to let a few more in. And then 27 is going to be quite exciting because the plan is we're going to go to a sports world trophy. So the super final would be a word people pick up from PwC more. It's a similar concept, not super final, but the world sports. And from that, we're going to just let people race in next year's series, and then we'll take the top 100 or something from that, and they'll have the opportunity to come to a one-off end of season race, which will occur actually 6 months after the season to allow time for planning. And there'll be opportunity for some winners of each event to get automatic selection as well. So that's another good dynamic. It's quite a scary one because this is one event that does put huge pressure on the sports manufacturers wanting to win it. But again, we're trying to consider rules even for that. We're trying to restrict things so the manufacturer can't produce that wing just to win it. So, for example, if the wing didn't fly in the 26 series, you can't take it to the event, which will be summer 27. You can't use a 27 wing to win the 27 and sports trophy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to be careful, and that's the sort of things that'll be much harder for things like CIVL to do. With us, we're a private company, effectively the SRS. We can choose our customers. We don't just block people, but we've got flexibility. CIVL for the worlds, that's difficult because CIVL or the FAI, it's a group of host nations, and every nation is entitled to send its best pilots. And so the bottom end of the skill level might be pilots that still haven't progressed beyond C, but it's the best pilot from that country, and he's entitled to come as long as he's achieved a basic standard in WPRS. So from that aspect, it's harder for CIVL to maintain this safety. That's something a pilot has to always understand. But with the SRS, we're trying to be dynamic, keep it fun, and keep a nice target for people. So,
is there a possibility that we could have something like the FAI racing, I don't know if it's FAI or whatever is the motorsport equivalent, where their circuit goes 10 or 20 races in the world and there's no super final format, it's just the drivers, the constructors championship where you collect points all throughout? Like, is this finally the first series that might evolve into something like that in 5 years, 10 years time, so that we can...
They've already got it. It's always existed. It's the world ranking system.
Yeah.
You choose any event you can access in the world, you score some points, and your top 4 form your world position. So that is
No, I meant like in the lower category where inclusivity is like not just restricted to people who are just racing on triple C's or E&Ds, but like more.
I'll say that, but that WPRS does encompass the entire. Everybody is competing anything. Your first beginner's comp, you still take some points into the world ranking system. You just have to find your place in there then and who you're targeting to race. There is a new aspect that will be launched. I forget, we don't know the exact date, we're waiting on the programmers, but in the next few weeks or month or two, there'll be a sports world ranking system that will come out. So just like the main one, your top 4 events that you flew a sports wing will form your sports world ranking. It's just a filter on the WPRS, the same as you can click on female or you can click on junior and see them. But that'll make it more visible who do well in sports. It'll give you a much easier target to achieve.
Yeah.
But for CIVL to actually link events together directly to make a subset, I think that would be challenging because it comes down to a lack of volunteers and a lack of space on the calendar.
Right.
The calendar is already hugely busy at the moment, and next year is quite challenging for me as an organizer. I'm organizing the SRS series. I'm also organising 3 events for the British for our national championships. I've got my own personal ones in the Navita Open. But the whole of August is effectively blocked out to us because there's 2 Cat 1s occurring for CIVL. And the best pilots, the Junior World Championships, the best juniors are going, and juniors up to 26 years of age. So it's quite a large bunch of pilots. And we've got the European Championships, as the Americas will have their Pan Ams and so on. The continents get together. And that sucks up the best pilots. So how can you have a serious world level competition if a big chunk of the calendar's gone?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. WPRS works quite well to me.
Okay. Yeah, but Brett, there's a lot of work from what I, in the past hour of conversation, if I condense it, the amount of effort it takes to be an organizer is often thankless a lot of times. And then on top of that, there are some things that happen, like Bram's accident, and I think even you guys lost. He just got lost in Colombia, I believe. There was a pilot which was never. Has he been found again, or what was the end result of that?
No, unfortunately not. So yeah, this is one that's happened in an SRS last year. We had a pilot took off in the task and not been seen. I mean, it's we can be fairly open on most aspects that happened. I don't want to put the pilot down directly too much or anything, but the basics were he took off in the task, but he wanted to fly something different to the task. He wanted to fly in a direction that we hadn't checked.
Yeah.
We knew it was just jungle and no roads and no people and no phones and nothing. So we would never task that direction. We were tasking the complete opposite direction. But he wanted to fly that area a bit and explore it and then probably hook round back to the task at a later stage. So we have a certain amount of tracking, but no, he's not been found, unfortunately. But there was a set of circumstances after. I mean, he did land safely. We did have contact with him 24, 28 hours later, and he was fine walking back. We got location for that eventually. It's pilot responsibility. And as an organizer, to create rules that everybody will maintain is quite difficult.
Yeah.
We have a rule now, if you take off to fly the task, you must fly the task. You mustn't divert off somewhere else. We can't, in the old days, we had open tasks where you could fly any direction. But the sport very quickly learned 30 years ago that that's quite dangerous, having someone flying 100 Ks that way, someone 100 Ks that way. The format now is we all stay together in a close group. I set a task as a task setter, which is guessing the weather 50 kilometers away, 3 or 4 hours from now. It's an educated guess, but it's still a guess. But as a group, then you can radio back to the meet director whilst you're flying the task and say, hang on, the conditions aren't good, this area is not safe. All the pilots are mandatorily on radio. Or in a modern system, we've got a very advanced tracker system now, which we can communicate through the trackers. And we can stop the task. But if you've gone off in a different direction, then it's very hard for us to allow for that. So there's that aspect there. But that just goes out to the whole safety. There's no money. Most of us are not professional. I'm reasonably professional with a lot of stuff I organize. But majority of events are run by a club as a one-off for the year, and they look for the volunteers in the club and hopefully get some experienced ones. And they do the best they can as a volunteer. And it's a huge task if you've never organized or don't organize comps very often. And that's where the pilot just has to respect that really and try and stay within the boundaries of what we're trying to do.
I mean, what I was going to say is that is it all worth it, even though you are fairly well organized in professional settings? I think you're doing this full time. You are one of the most professional organizers that the sport has seen over a period of a certain time. So the rewards that come with the effort, I'm not going to say the risk that you put in, but the effort that you put in, is it all somehow making sense in your head, or does the current political scenario or general discussion is making you rethink that as an organizer that, God damn, if some other people in my shoes are being put in front and being questioned like this, then it's maybe good to kind of, step back. Because a pilot is just going to come in the race, but you are the one who's going to go to repeated races year after year.
We take on a lot of risk in liability, potentially, so that has to be managed. We're good at putting out forms you must sign, disclaimers and stuff, or whatever validity they may or may not have. An organizer must do an absolute minimum. He must provide what he can in safety. So yes, we try and get ambulances or paramedics on the launch. Hopefully we manage to get countries where there's a helicopter, but actually most competitions in the world are not in the country where such facilities are available. So the pilot has to understand that. But as long as we do our due diligence, we've had these conversations and hopefully organisers documented if this happens, how we're going to tackle that. The pilot crashes over there, how would we respond to that? Is the procedure. And when the radio message comes in, who reacts to that? So, yeah, you have to have that process in hand and have it all pre-discussed and mapped out. That's where going to events that have been running for a number of years can actually help. So we made a decision on the Navator Open many, many years ago to not keep moving around the world, to stay in the same venue every year on the same dates. We built up a huge experience then every year of how to make it better and handle the safety better. So that's quite key. And then for a reward, I don't know, it's not financial reward, that's for sure. I earned more 20 years ago than I do now, than I do. So it's definitely not the money. And most people organising are volunteers or pretty damn close to volunteers, just expenses. But I think anyone who's organising is doing it for the fun, the enjoyment. I get so much pleasure out of seeing the opportunities and the smiles from people in goal or the lessons they're learning. I love giving talks in the evenings when I get opportunity and just passing on experience. So that's the reward for me and for a lot of the organisers, for sure.
That's so nice to hear. That's so nice to hear that you look at it with those eyes and that direction, because I think if your actions put smile on somebody else's face, that's nothing more meaningful and valuable than that, Brett, no matter how amazing and easy you are to talk to as a person, we do have to find a time to conclude. But before I let you go, I want you to, leave a statement of some sorts to all the young pilots, all the 10 to 20% who are less than 26 or 30 years, who are wanting to experience the awesomeness of SRS in their lives. What message do you have to them, and when do you think they are ready to be a part of the SRS drive?
It's just make a plan for the future. Just map it out how you will get to your target, any target, not just the SRS. Just have a number of small targets to get you to the end game. So if it's world champion, you're not going to get there instantly. First, you need to take this step, go to a competition, a learning competition, then get to something a little bit more competitive and just set up a roadmap for how to get there. And the most important is just don't let the red mist drop, just be aware. And awareness comes from practice. So you've got to practice a lot, no matter what you do, whether it's flying or in the competition environment. Just keep practicing so that it becomes second nature. And then you open yourself up to seeing more, to being more aware again what's happening around you. And that's what will keep you going, keep you motivated, keep you enjoying it. You've got to be comfortable in it, not too big of steps. And then, the SRS is here. It's probably aimed for the 5th competition onwards, if you like. That's usually what it takes to get the access. Yeah. And we got some champions here. Come and meet the champions.
Love it.
You'll learn a lot.
Yeah, learn a lot and be a part of the game.
Learn a lot.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Brett, you know what? Honestly, I want to keep on divulging into other tangents, but let's save something for later when we have more data and analysis to discuss.
That raised.
Yeah.
I can come back. I don't mind another time.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe in one of the SRS comps, it's been a long time coming. I feel like I should be a part of that tribe as well. I feel left out.
Come and have a go. Apply for a wild card if you don't have the score, but don't all apply for wild cards. We have 25 every event, and we only offer a few. But for the right people, if you need it.
Indeed, indeed. So if the inner calling says SRS is your game, then give it a shot, because unless you try, you never know.
There you go. Keep it real. Keep having fun. That's the key. Keep it safe.
I think I'm going to leave it at there, man. This is like nothing but words of wisdom. So that's about it for now. Stay tuned, stay excited, because both of these magics are just getting started.
Exactly. There you go. There's lots of comps out there. We'll see you to one of them.
Sounds like a friend, Brett. Have a nice time. See you around.
Yeah. Take care. Cheers.